Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who's his own biggest fan, like my man Obi. The finale of Loki Season 2 is right around the corner, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down all the remaining shots, giving our theories on them, and talking about the potential Easter eggs that might be coming up. Heavy spoilers ahead, and we have some leaked artwork for the promotion of the series, which could potentially spoil what they do with Loki. If it's real, then you might want to avoid it, like your brother's getting a snake. That's a Thor and Loki and Mobius kid joke in one, and with that out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the trailer.
Loki, how much do you know?
Let's assume I don't know much, but I'm a fast learner, and I'm a god.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
Here we go.
Now, I think that this scene happens when Loki and Sylvie are at the automat during episode 4. That would stop him from running into himself and creating further branches out from this point. Now, before diving into this, I think we have to talk about the way that time travel's been changed in the show so it can give you a clearer idea of what's going on. Firstly, it was operating off the Bootstrap Paradox, which meant that everything had a cause and effect. If you've been watching Bodies on Netflix, then you'll know that it works in the same way, but lots of time travel shows use the same device. Dark, for example, that's another great one. Check out Triangle the movie because that's brilliant as well. Now, boiled down to its simplest terms though, the theory states that a scientist one day gets a knock at the door and they open it to discover a book that's been left on the ground. Reading through it, this tells them how to build a time machine which they then make and travel into the past. At this point, they then leave themselves the book and the cycle then continues out from this moment. This is sort of a chicken and egg situation in which there's not really a start or an end, it's just one big loop all happening across time. Now, this is something that we also saw with Victor Timely, and I think that because of this, he in some ways creates He Who Remains. Either way, the entire show's been working in a loop, but Loki managed to break this during episode 5. He was able to travel back in time and interact with things and alter them from the way that they happened in the past. Now, Loki's still in the exact same position, he doesn't bump into himself, so he's kind of taking over his consciousness in his past life, if that makes sense. If you've seen the butterfly effect, it sort of works in the same way, with Ashton Kutcher going back to his consciousness in the past and then doing things differently. Now, as we know with the way that time travel works in the MCU, if you change things, it creates a branch in reality. Therefore, Loki going back to the moment at the end of episode 4, everything from this point will create a branch in time. Now, that's important to bear in mind when you watch this next clip, which I think shows he's repeating certain moments.
Here we go.
Listen to me carefully. Hit the green button. It can be a little sticky.
Here we see him instructing Victor Timely, and later on we see a different angle of him getting turned to spaghetti. I believe that he's going to keep travelling back to this moment, and in the end he'll realise he has to be the one to do it. Thus he goes out onto the bridge, which is a shot we get in the trailer, showing that he has to be the one who saves it. Focus on that who there. Now again, going to the whole branch in time thing, technically these are all different realities. However, what I think will happen is that they'll go down a route in which the attempt actually works, and this will leave that as being the sacred timeline. The other branches could then be pruned, leaving just the one in which they save the TVA. Think about how it worked in Infinity War and Endgame. Doctor Strange saw all those different timelines, but in the end they went down the one that caused them to come out on top. All those other timelines, they were still likely out there, but that one, it just got them to the end. Now in the teaser, we also see a green Strand effect heading out to Loki. Though this didn't happen in the episode, I think it's in the trailer to give us a little clue. That takes us to the leaked Loki image that showed similar green strands all being held by him. I believe that Loki will end up as the ruler of all time, and that after he heads to the bridge, he'll be taken somewhere else. Potentially in fixing the loom, he also gains control of it and now becomes the person who takes over He Who Remains. Now, we've seen in the other trailers how Ravonna can be seen down in the void, clearly coming face to face with the Beast Alive. I actually think that the way things are going to work is that we're going to get these two stories balanced alongside each other. I think when we get the scene where Loki walks along the bridge, that at this point he'll save things and we'll hear this.
There's something you have to see.
I think Ms. Minutes will reveal to him that he's actually at the end of time and that Ravonna will discover this version somewhere in the void. I believe that she'll escape it like how Loki and Sylvie did, but whereas they saw He Who Remains, she'll see Loki. Now that ties into the Agent of Asgard comic book, which this series has taken a lot of inspiration from. In that Loki was sick of basically being a loser that only succeeded in bringing people together to stop him. This is something that they touched upon in Season 1, but the similarities go far beyond that. Agent of Asgard Loki managed to make it to the end of time, but rather than seeing He Who Remains, he met his older self. He'd been the one that had been controlling it all, and I think that this will be where they take the show. That leaked artwork, it shows him holding all the strands, and if that's real, then it makes sense they'd head that way. A huge shout out to Josh from Den of Nerds, who actually had a really good theory on this whole thing. He brought up how Feige's now in control of Marvel Comics too, and that he's been slotting in ideas for them that'll pay off in the MCU. Josh thinks that Loki may be Avenger Prime, who exists at the end of time.
But I'm not a rapper.
He's been rounding up Avengers and bringing them together, much like how Loki does in the latest entry. I actually think that Loki might end up being at the end of time, and here he could become Avengers Prime, who collects Avengers in time to fight Kang. Didn't mean to make that rhyme, but it did rhyme. Now, with the word rhyme as well. Now, from what I've heard, Secret Wars is going to be a big multiversal event with lots of characters pulled from across time and different universes. This includes the Fox X-Men, Spider-Man franchises, Fantastic Four, MCU, and so on. We have heard there's been talks to bring ScarJo and RDJ back, and having this would also make a lot of sense. Now, on top of this, there's also the fact that Loki can now time slip as well. Time keeps on slipping into the future, and he could potentially travel to whatever point he'd like to, recruit whatever members he wants to, and then bring them into this war. I think that would make a ton of sense, and it would allow them to basically redeem Loki into being this hero, leading the charge against Kang. I also even think that Loki might have been the one who was in charge of He Who Remains in the first place, with him believing that he ruled it all. He was the one that had the script, but in order to have that, someone had to write it. Now, in terms of where the show could be going in the future, I really hope that Mobius gets returned to his family. What seems likely though is that Loki's recruiting these agents here so that they can all be used as part of the TVA. They've now all had their memories wiped, and thus the cycle may be able to start again soon. Who knows, Loki might not even save the TVA, and its destruction could be a necessary part of this entire cycle. This then has to come out and be built up again from the ashes, and it'll all start afresh. Either way, there's lots of directions they can take things, but I think the next episode we'll see the scene in which Loki instructs Victor early on. Failing to do the job, he'll guard instead, and it's at this point that it'll all come together. The finale is rumoured to be 56 minutes long, and thus they have lots of things that they have to cover. The way the Variety article laid things out, it looks like Kang's going to be a major threat in the end, which will of course lead into things further down the line. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're spitballing a lot here, coming out with lots of theories, but at the end of the day, you guys should have some input too. Also, please drop a like on the video, and if you want to support the channel as a member of the Spoiler Society, then please click the join button. You'll get early access to videos every week, and it goes such a long way to helping us out. If you want to get some heavy spoilers merch, we've also got our t-shirt line located below the video, and right now we're selling a Loki inspired t-shirt. We've also got our theory time one, all the crap we've made so far. So yeah, definitely head over there, and if you want to get one of them to show off to your friends. You don't have any friends, do you? Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got a video on screen right now, breaking down the Loki episode 5, what happened in that cheese. But thanks for sticking with me up until this point. I love you. I've been up since 3 AM. It's now 6. We've done so many breakdowns, but yeah, I'll see you next time, and you take care of yourself.